completely honest. So I thought it was a return to normalcy for the 49ers. They looked an awful lot, if not better, than some of the performances we saw during the 5-0 start. And, look, this isn't an overreaction, because Larry and I were actually talking about some of these things while the 3-game losing streak, while the 5 interceptions over 3 games was happening for Brock Purdy. He was still doing some extraordinary things. Larry, I don't know how anyone could keep him out of the conversation of top 10 best quarterbacks in football today. I really don't. I don't know how you can keep him now. You're going to have to actively find ways to keep him out of that conversation. The man entered the game with the best QBR in the NFL. So, you can't get much better than number 1. Brock Purdy finished his afternoon in Jacksonville with a career-high passer rating of 148.9. The 49ers offense has now scored 30 or more 6 times this season. That is the most in the NFL. And he, beyond the one throw that was a touchdown to Ayuk, but as he was making that throw, he broke every single on-field cardinal rule
right,
that you could possibly break as a quarterback. Don't want to see that again, Brock. That's one of those, the process matters more than the result. And I'm sure Kyle is going to say, this is your worst throw of the afternoon. This touchdown is your worst throw of the afternoon. Never do that again, Brock. But it is that, cocksure attitude that I think separates a good quarterback from just an average quarterback. And Brock believes he can do shit with the football that other guys can't. And some days that'll bite him, and some days it'll bring the 49ers into the victory column. And I thought in Jacksonville, it was one of those days. Purdy is a player. He's not the guy you'd build in a player creation mode. He doesn't have the physical attributes that Trey Lance has, but I would not take Trey Lance as a team's quarterback before I take Brock Purdy, just based on the 8 games of this season alone, the 9 games that these guys have both now played. Brock is outplaying Trey Lance in every and all conceivable ways, essentially. So they're not Trey Lance, but Trevor Lawrence, pardon me.
I was saying, why are we going back to Trey Lance?
Yeah, no, Trevor Lawrence is who I meant. That's the guy that he was playing again. Look, Brock Purdy's season already is littered with top tier, higher paid, higher drafted quarterbacks that he has beaten thoroughly outdueled them. And I know the quarterbacks aren't necessarily playing against each other, but the NFL always likes to frame that conversation. I just don't understand how anyone could look at what Brock has done and try to figure out what he isn't before they just start accepting what he is. What he is one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. There you go.
It's so interesting because if you threw out the question this morning, who would you rather take, Brock Purdy or Trevor Lawrence? Most football fans would take Trevor Lawrence and wouldn't think twice. And then they will give the, even though they'll insult Shanahan left and right and suggest he's on the hot seat when he's nowhere near it. The first thing that they'll say is, could you imagine Trevor Lawrence in this offense with Kyle Shanahan and these weapons? It's like, he would be incredible. So, and who knows, because we're never going to see it. But, one guy's got the central casting looks and attributes of size, stature, arm strength, speed, toughness. I mean, I love Trevor Lawrence as a prospect. The other guy is just, doesn't look the part, but man, he just keeps getting it done. And at this point, yesterday, if you didn't see the box, 19 of 26 for Purdy, 296 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, a 148.9 passer rating. They did sack him a couple times, but in some ways, Damon, this was his greatest test. You're on the road. Your team's lost 3 in a row. You're going up against a Jacksonville team that's won 5 in a row, that entered the game yesterday leading the NFL with 18 takeaways. So that's their MO, right? They take the ball away, and your MO in the last couple of weeks is you're giving it away. So mix in some pressure, with Super Bowl expectations and the iconic 49er franchise with 65% of the stadium, wearing red. There's some serious pressure to win that game on the road against a Jaguar team that rolled in with tons of confidence. So I thought in a lot of ways, Purdy was outstanding. Shanahan on the touchdown throw, he says that was like one of the worst decisions he's made since he's been here. It took me a while to get over it, but I thanked him for the touchdown. The number, though, Damon, that jumps out to me with Purdy is what he does against pressure. He was pressured on a career high 50% of his dropbacks yesterday, and he threw against pressure for a career high 143 yards. He went 8 of 12 and two touchdowns on those passes against pressure. Against pressure this year, or again, pressure in his career, he's got 8 touchdowns and 1 pick. So, I mean, the consistency is there. I mean, Mike Martz was comparing him to Joe Montana after the game. I won't go there out of respect for Joe and not wanting to apply any pressure to Brock. And I don't believe he's in Joe's category. I really don't.
Right, well, look, any quarterback has a couple good games in the row. They're compared to Joe Montana or Tom Brady these days.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Well, especially if you play for the Niners.
Right.
But I forget Joe. But just, the thing about Brock Purdy is one thing that's just so undeniable is he is clearly able to operate this system efficiently and effectively. And he's good enough. What we can debate it forever, but to me, the real story was he's always been good enough. But we have to give this guy. He's still a young guy. He's barely played. You got to give him a few games here and there to kind of adjust his dials to how much risk versus how much reward. When and late over the middle in a crowd should be like number one rule against, and that's exactly what he broke to get that first touchdown. But he's, I'd rather have a guy who's super aggressive, who's always looking to make plays, like a young Brett Favre, even though these guys physically looked much different.
No, compare him to Brett Favre.
I know, but I mean, I'm just saying, as far as like he goes, I'd rather have a quarterback that's trying to make a play and rein that guy in than a guy who's super captain check down and you're trying to dial him up to take chances. I'd much rather choke it back than try to build somebody into something that they're not naturally. And I thought the Niners did a great job at the line of scrimmage in this game, and Brock benefited from it. But Brock made several big time throws, down the field, and I think we need to stop jumping. Give this guy what he needs, which is he's going to have some up games, he's going to have some down games. But I think it's pretty clear the 49ers have their guy going forward. It's just a matter of, can they build up the offensive and defensive lines around him and can he take care of the football, get it to his weapons, operate the offense efficiently and win games. And yesterday was good enough to beat almost anybody in the league.